Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this month's webinar. I'm Ron Bro, happy to be your host today. We're going to cover capacity planning in OpenAir today. We've got some tips and a few insights. So we're really going to dive into capacity reporting in OpenAir, and we'll describe there's different ways to think of capacity, and then we'll also talk about some other capacity reporting requirements we see from customers as well, maybe around products and services. So what do we consider capacity? Generally, what we see is, what is the staff I have available to deliver the services that I sell? If I have too much services to sell and not enough staff, that's not good. If I've got too much staff and not enough services, that's not good. So we have to, keep an eye on that balance of our capacity to deliver. And so generally we see there's a few different ways to think about capacity. We often hear customers saying, I want to track FTEs, and I want to be able to see how many FTEs do I have versus how many FTEs do I need. And so OpenAir actually handles this reporting capability well, and we'll take a look at a couple of reports that you can run right out of the box to get FTEs. The other way you can think about it is hours. I have so many hours of my resources to deliver, and I have so many hours of work ahead, and does that match? Hours you can get, FTEs is kind of a higher level. It gives you a good gauge of where you are, but it doesn't tell the whole story. Hours, you start to get into a more detailed story about whether you really are in trouble or you really are in good shape to be able to accommodate your customers. Hours you get into, holidays and time off and capacity of your resources, where you don't get that from an FTE report. And then money. We have target budgets for our company, for our professional service organization. Do we have enough capacity to meet those targets? How do we measure that to make sure our capacity of resources matches our budgeted, our monthly budgets for target revenue? So we'll talk about how we can get those types of reports out of the system as well. So FTE. I was recently asked to put together an FTE report, and I hadn't done it in a bit. And I started playing with custom calcs. And then I realized, this is an out-of-the-box OpenAir field. So I don't need to mess with custom calcs. And so I just went into a company summary report, and I typed in FTE in my measures, you can see here. And voila, all sorts of FTE options popped up. And this is, preferred here because this allows you to be able to total by project, total by user, and the FTE value works in either case, which is really good. So you can run booked FTEs if you're using project assignments to manage your future assigned resources. You could use assigned FTEs. There's a number of out-of-the-box values for FTEs that you are, and we'll show you an example of a report that uses those. And that's great. I see what I have FTEs from a scheduled perspective, but what do I have on staff? How many project managers do I have on staff? You can actually report that out of OpenAir as well. It is a part of a job code table. So in the job code, you can report on quantity. And there's two options: quantity of generics, which we typically don't use, but the more important one is quantity of staff. And this is going to basically do a count by job code. How many project managers do I have on staff at this given time? And so this can be really useful reporting value, and I'll show you in a moment. So here's a job code detail report. So if you just go into your reporting engine and create a job code detail report, you can include quantity on staff in that report, and it'll subtotal by the job codes you have and the quantity on staff. So in this case, we have 4 managers and 13 consultants. Be aware, though, you will want to exclude inactive resources using that checkbox in the report setup, because if you don't, you will pick up everybody, whether they're active or not, which will skew your numbers for your quantity. So make sure you do that. Okay, well, that's great. Now I know how to get to quantity, but how do I actually use it? Well, you can also create a company summary report or cross-tab report, and you include that. So if you're creating a company summary report and you include subtotal by job code, you could add quantity of staff as a detail. And then for your months view, you can use the, for example, booked FTEs. So in this case, we have 13 consultants on staff, and in October, I have 4.39 booked. Well, that means I've got a lot of extra capacity from a consultant perspective. I need to go, find some work for those guys. So you can see here how you can combine the detail from the job code to the future view of using the booked FTEs. Again, make sure you're excluding inactive entities, same as the previous. So make sure you get inactive resourcing out of your report. There's another approach worth mentioning because a job code detail report is not a report you typically run very often. You can actually use a user detail report. It allows you to pull a little bit more data in. But you can do, if you do a user detail report and subtotal by job code, and there's an option in all detail reports where you can add count into the report, and then you can do roll up. So there is a roll up checkbox here, and it basically allows you to roll up the numbers. And so you can see in this case, we're rolling up by job code, doing a count, and we're getting the same value that we were getting in the job code detail report. So this does give you a little bit more filtering options and a few more options you don't get in the job code report. It does deliver the same results, assuming the filters are the same in both reports. So just another option. Okay, great. FTE. The downside about FTE is it expects everyone to be 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and if you've got part-time people, that's tricky because they're counting those, part-time people as FTEs. But, if you're looking at it by hours, you can get a little bit more granular because you can look at each individual's work schedule. So, behind the scenes, all the users in OpenAir are assigned a work schedule. It basically will define what the expectations are from per hours per day. And when you can use those hours in calculations and reports. And there are two work schedule reportable values. There's base work schedule and there's work schedule. The base work schedule is going to give you a 20/80 no matter what. So it's assuming someone is 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It will basically give you 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, and it doesn't care about anything else. And the work schedule hours is going to take into impact your holidays. So if you're adding holidays to the work schedule, and we've got a holiday on a Monday, it's going to say your work schedule for that week is 32 hours, whereas the base work schedule is going to basically say it's 40 hours. So in our experience, using the work schedule hours, excluding the holidays, is a much more accurate report option. And so we definitely recommend those. So this example here of a report where we're using the job code company summary with the job code subtotal, the quantity on staff, and we can see the difference between, in this case, there's the work schedule and the base work schedule are the same because they didn't have any holidays on the work schedule. That's great. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, minus holidays, that gets you to a good place, but it doesn't get you all the way. My not generally we don't run into customers where everyone is expecting to be 100% billable. Generally, there is a billable utilization target that we're basing our budgeting on at a PS professional service level, at an individual level, and people can have varying targets. You could have, project managers with one target. You might have consultants with a different target. And so, using OpenAir's target utilization feature allows you to even refine your capacity reporting even more. And so it allows, so let's say we're expected to be 75% utilized because the other 25%, we know there's meetings, we know there's unproductive time, overhead, administration, et cetera. And so if we really want to see what's our capacity to deliver, we want to use maybe the take into effect our target utilization at a user by user basis. When you enable target utilization, it does enable two new reportable fields that you can add to your capacity reports, base target hours and target hours. And you can guess the difference. The base target hours is going to just give you the percentage. So if I'm 50% target and it's a 5-day week, with a holiday, I'm still going to have a 20-hour denominator versus target hours will give you the 50% of the remaining 32, which gives me a 16-hour denominator. So you can see here in this example, we've just pulled in the values to show what they look like in a report. These are all available in the resourcing section of the reporting values. Okay, the other way that we work with customers is understanding capacity and using money as a value of determining capacity. So yeah, that's great. We have hours, but what does that mean from a monetary perspective? What are we capable of delivering based on those capacity hours? And to do that, you typically have to have a bill rate expectation. And we see this a lot with customers wanting to basically store a standard bill rate per resource based on the type of resource they are, and then be able to run realization reports using, if they had billed at their standard rate, we would have this many dollars. Now, what did they actually do, and where's the delta? And that generally gives you a realization percentage. But to get the bill rate, there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can certainly create a custom field. It's going to have some limitations, and then you've got to create custom calcs to get all of your capacity value dollars into reports. We generally recommend is to use a cost rate. So as you all know, under a user, you can assign an hourly cost. Well, you can, out of the box, OpenAir comes with a single cost enabled, but you can actually enable a secondary and a tertiary cost on the user. And most customers don't really have a need to store 3 different costs on a user's rather. So we will steal one of those and rename it to like a target bill rate. And the benefit of that is it applies cost reporting, which is in all levels of the OpenAir tool, by using that bill rate in those same calculations. And so now we get all the values we ever need. It takes time times that rate, proof time, work time, et cetera. And now those values are instantly reportable in standard reports. And so now we can take our target bill rates and we can apply the hours against them, and using our utilization and be able to come up with our approach and our revenue budget. Here's the amount of money we can deliver based on everyone meeting their utilization targets, and compare that to what our forecasted revenue looks like. So here's what we talked about. Here's a little more detail around being able to take one of the costs from a user and be able to repurpose it to store this bill rate, and then allows you to have those projected values right out the box. You could also, you may want to create some different calculations. So these are some of the custom calculations to see what you can get for like target hours, target bill rate. You can divide all the users' target costs by their hours to come up with their bill rate. So there's a few values that you might want to include in a report or use in other custom calcs that you would need to create using custom calcs. The overall dollars are there, but some of the finer points you may want to back into using this method. So here's a report using money as a determination of capacity. So in this case, we have our projected work schedule based on target bill rate. And then we have our target hours, base target hours. And our base target dollars are here. So here we're including for month over month, what is our capacity to deliver from a dollars perspective. You can see the difference here using just a 40-hour versus using a target of 75%. This becomes more actual, which you actually can deliver without overburdening and overutilizing your resources. So here's a different report, kind of showing what this can look like. So for example, here for the month of October, we have the capacity to deliver $136,500 based on work schedule using target bill rates and target utilization. Right now, we have projected $67,000 in projected billing for the month. So we are way over capacity. We're going to have a lot of bench in the month of October if we don't fill the gap. And what's nice about this is you can look ahead and be able to see where the gaps are. And so you can work with your sales team to see what you can pull in, what new opportunities can come in, maybe take some backlog that you have and bring that into the current month because you have capacity. It also helps as you're looking as your salespeople are working on deals, trying to determine when we can start. This is a really nice way to report to say, looks like we can start in October because we're going to have the capacity to do so. So if you look at the management line on this report, our target delivery is 47,250. We're slightly over our capacity. So this would make me a little nervous. Do we need to retrain some folks or cross-train? Because looks like I may have more management work than I have management capacity from a dollars perspective. And you may have to do the opposite and maybe push some projects off for that. So really good report for being able to look at your pipeline, your actual customer work ongoing, your backlog against what you're capable of delivering month over month. So often that's great, but we want to see how many people do we have on staff that have different skills, or how many projects do we have by different counts. So we can run reports in OpenAir. So this is using the skill profile or the skill database, and we can look at capacity on staff. So we can run a skill detail report, and using that same roll-up checkbox that we pointed out earlier, we can actually go ahead and include our profile with our attribute and our head count and our count of resources that have that skill. So in this example, we have 3 folks in-house that have NetSuite CRM and et cetera. So here I can kind of use this to kind of gauge, do we need to cross-train? Do we need to hire? This gives me a kind of a good basis of do I have a good mix of skills based on the types of work that my company does. And lastly, we be able to look at the types of projects that we deliver, either by offering, by service. If you embed your type of project or the product you're selling at the project level, you can go ahead and run reports by, how much dollars do we have in our backlog, or how much have we sold by different project offerings or different services that we sell. And so this gives you kind of be able to show you the types of projects that you have in your pipeline or have in your past, and helps you align with what kind of capacity by different types of resources am I going to need to be able to accommodate this mix of services for my customers. So another way to be able to bring it down to a project level, to be able to see what the capacity and dollar amounts per project per type. So in summary, there's lots of different ways to get at capacity. And you may use one of these or all of these. They all complement each other, and they all have their good business cases. You can use a combination of standard report values, custom calcs as well, depending on what you're trying to get. You can include capacity reports looking forward, forecasting reports, as well as looking at demand for your backlog in-house. And then also looking at skill profiles. You can get more insight as to your FTEs by skill to be able to determine if you have any holes in your staff for different types of resources you need to deliver projects. Thank you very much for joining today. I'm going to stop the recording and see if there are any questions.